This is Jocko podcast number 471 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
I love this country. I love the principles that it was founded upon. I love the people who live here, the diverse mixed bag of hardworking, freedom-loving, independent individuals who make up our society. I love this land, from the mountains in Colorado to the wide-open cattle fields in Texas to the sun and waves of Southern California. I was born here, raised here. I offered my life to serve this nation and protect its people. But as I look ahead, I fear for our trajectory. I fear for the future we're creating for the next generation. And that's why we need to talk. Because true change will only happen when honest, healthy, and thoughtful conversations take place. We live in a world inundated with noise. The sound of people shouting their opinions and sharing information from every imaginable outlet, screaming to have their voices heard, surround us. But though we may be talking, shouting, cramming information into our minds like a football team with a stack of pizza boxes in front of them, no one is actually communicating. No one is sitting down and having real conversations. No one is really talking. And we sure as hell aren't listening to each other. We've become a polarized and divided society that refuses to emerge from our echo chambers to listen to anyone with a differing opinion. We've grown so accustomed to the incessant noise created by biased news outlets, angry people convinced of their own assumptions, and an onslaught of information that we've lost the ability to have any type of substantial, positive conversations with our fellow man. As a result, we miss out on the power that comes from innovative, open minds tackling our world's problems from differing viewpoints and unique perspectives. And that right there is an excerpt from a book called Unfuck America, written by Mike Ritland. And Mike Ritland is a former SEAL, dog handler, dog trainer, author of several other books, including K-9, Trident, Warriors, Navy SEAL Dogs, and Team Dog. He's the founder and owner of Tricos International, which trains dogs, sells dogs, offers training programs for dogs, and fuels dogs with his Team Dog dog food, treats, and supplements. He also runs the Warrior Dog Foundation, which takes care of retired working dogs that would otherwise be euthanized. And finally, he is the host of the Mic Drop podcast, no holds barred conversations with a wide variety of people to learn perspectives and expand horizons. He's been on this podcast before, a little over 6 years ago, episode 113, and he's back here to discuss some of his more recent lesson learned things going on in his world. So there you go. Welcome back, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me. One quick correction: I trainer, not a handler, which people in the community are pretty particular about. So just as a heads up. But
because I said you're a former dog handler, and I should have said a former dog trainer.
Yeah, but I mean,
got it. Hey,
yeah,
we want to get it right.
Yeah.
It's real.
It might not mean much to Echo Charles, who's like, "Hey, bro, handler."
What does mean a lot?
If you're training them, aren't you handling them? If you're training them,
It's true.
So I was thinking about this book came out in 2021.
Yeah.
That was like, were you writing it during COVID?
I was. I mean, that's really the reason it was written was, the 2 weeks to stop the spread that turned into 2 years of fucking madness. I was sitting at home. The kids are home from school. They basically went on spring break and then didn't go back. And so like everybody's kids. And so, in my industry, a lot of things had slowed down. In-person stuff had kind of shut off. And so I found myself sitting at home and I was like, well, I can go the way of a lot of people in Netflix and DoorDash, or I can, do something productive. And this had actually been a project that I had been approached by Penguin to do on the heels of the Team Dog training book. And basically it was hey, we love your podcast, and there's all these different viewpoints, and a lot of them are kind of hotbed political topics that our nation is faced with that causes a lot of debate and controversy. And
so why don't you jump in the mix too?
So why don't you get started on that? And so for me, it was like, obviously they've done enough due diligence to say that they think it's a good idea. My concern with doing it with them or any big publishing house was they're going to stifle my voice and edit the shit out of it and make it to where it's not even really worth doing. So I was like, well, I've already done 3 under major publishers. Why don't I just do it myself? And then I can do it at my pace. B, it'll be completely up to me how it gets edited. And especially with a book like that, because it's pretty edgy that way. The last thing you want is a multi-billion-dollar publishing corporation and their HR team and lawyers going through something like that. So,
yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have been 9 pages.
Yeah, it would have been 9 pages, and the title might have been changed
for sure. Yeah, you're not getting away with that one. Yeah.
So I'm not going to read the whole book on the podcast. Get the book, but one of the things you talk about here is you talk about America. And in this opening chapter, you call it the rich, spoiled brat. And you go through that. I think that's a pretty obvious metaphor. Anyone could figure out what you write to explain that. But you talk about some of these freaking statistics. Mental health. On average, there are 132 suicides a day in the United States. 70,000 drug overdose deaths in the United States in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers are significantly higher now in both categories.
Opioid crisis. 1999 to 2018, 450,000 people died from an overdose involving opioid. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's World War II numbers.
Alcoholism. It's funny because you and I were talking. You and I just did a podcast. You interviewed me for your podcast, but we were talking about alcohol, and you were trying to pressure me. You're trying to peer pressure me into like the benefits of alcohol. And I literally have gone through this transition of, when I was in the teams, drank. When I was first got in the teams, drank a ton, drank less the older and more senior I got. And then eventually when I retired, stopped drinking, but still, I get it. Hey, I get it. It's still, and I didn't stop drinking like immediately, but it was pretty quick. And then it was like, well, I still get it. I get it why the platoon boys are going out and having a beer. Hey, that's part of the thing. It's part of bonding, and you know who your brothers are. And I went through that. Like, I get it and still support it. And then I was kind of like, well, and right now I've just gone.
Yeah.
I've gone. I can't find anything good about it anymore. So you talk about alcohol in this thing, and like, dude, it's excessive alcohol costs the U.S. economy $250 billion a year.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about alcohol. This is literally a poison that you're going to put in your body. It's going to make you do crazy shit. Yeah. I had a friend that was, when I was growing up, and he eventually did every drug, crack, heroin, pot, LSD, the whole 9 yards. And he would say the only drug that he thought should be illegal was alcohol. Yeah. Because he was in jail a couple times, and the times he got put in jail wasn't because of heroin, wasn't from crack, it was from booze. Yeah. He goes, nothing makes me do the more crazy shit than alcohol.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well, I guess to clarify, I wasn't, my intent was not to...
you were exploring the bounds of my beliefs.
Yeah, but not in a manner with which I am trying to highlight any benefits of alcohol. I guess I would say, going further into it, I think like on the platoon front, I think it makes sense to do those outings occasionally. I agree, like 3 or 4 nights a week, no. Even once a week, no. But I think like almost like a not Hell Week, but almost like an FTX is that, hey, let's send the boys out into fucking Beale Street on a trip, and they all get shit-faced and see how they handle it. Like, I don't think it should be a regular thing, but I do see a benefit in seeing how guys handle themselves under the influence when they're around each other, and there's that unknown of the civilian populace of other dickheads that are drinking and bouncers and the great unknown. I maybe it's just I throw it on pay-per-view. I don't know, but
no, if you want to get ratings on pay-per-view, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah. Give a bunch of freaking team guys booze on Beale Street. Oh yeah, let's go. Give them a fistful of money.
Throw some chicks in the mix.
Yeah, you can see why I don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Because we know this would make great reality television.
Yeah.
Dude, how many team guys wrecked their careers and
bunch.
or their lives?
A bunch.
And put a stain on the teams by doing dumb shit when drunk.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, I mean, I've never been a big drinker. I couldn't tell you the last time I had any. Like if my dad's in town for Christmas or something, we'll have a bourbon together or something, but that's about it. I mean, otherwise I almost never drink. I mean, I don't particularly like it. And I know what it's doing to your body. I mean, it's literal poison, I mean, that's how your body's treating it. And so, but to me, the biggest thing is the negative impacts that it has on society.
Yeah, no doubt.
Are just astronomical, especially when you compare it to, say, marijuana as an example. I'm not a fan of that either. But if I had to pick one or the other, I think weed would cause less problems than alcohol.
I have friends that smoke weed every day, multiple times a day, and they are way better off than the friends that I have that drink every day.
For sure.
It's not even close. Echo Charles, assessment?
He's from Hawaii. You know what he thinks.
Yeah, agree. I would agree with that protocol for sure.
Well, why is that?
Why is what?
Yeah. Like, why is that? Because my friend was right that when he said that alcohol makes you do crazy things.
Yeah. Well,
weed, do you do crazy stuff on weed?
I don't know that that's true, and I don't smoke weed, but I've never heard of anyone in particular who did crazy stuff on weed. And I'll tell you why. Put simply, what alcohol does is the two voices in your head, you know about this. The one that says, hey, yeah, do that, right? And then you have the regulatory voice that's like, no, don't do that because of these legitimate reasons, right? And then you play, this dance. So you go through life with that dance with those two voices. The alcohol just makes the voice that says, hey, no, don't do that. The regulatory voice just makes that quieter and quieter and quieter. That's it.
And does it make the other one louder too?
I guess as far as the result, it's louder, more prevalent. Yeah. And that's the way it works.
What do you get like when you're drunk, Echo Charles?
It's the same deal, but I'm not like an aggressive person to go like start trouble in the public or nothing like that. So but it's the same essential format where it's like, all the voices in my head that say, yeah, like that this is true. This is a good idea,
right. Because you know what he does when he's drunk? He buys multiple URLs from GoDaddy.com.
Yeah. Or like experimenting with stuff. Yeah, with video or special effects or whatever. But I'll tell you this, where, if I'm embracing the protocol, I'll be like, to be honest, it's true where, all my ideas seem like the best idea in the world. Yeah. That's why I have all these URLs, because I'm like, bro, I can make this website, and bro, I just see it being this massive success. Every, the voice saying yes is super loud, and the voice saying no is pretty much quiet. Then the next day, he wakes up, and then the reality sets in. See what I'm saying? So what my drinking looks like is different than what maybe, I don't know, a general society person's drinking might look like.
Yeah, when I used to drink, I used to be more Jocko. I would be like extra,
I would say that.
A lot more extra Jocko. Yeah. Same dude, but like a lot more of it. It's it's kind of fun, but not worth the damn squeeze.
Would you say that that's true though? And put very, very like fundamentally that's true. The whole voice in your head, the one that's
yes, I think that's true. But here's the other thing I noticed: like there's some people legitimately when they drink, they get in fights. Yeah. There's some guys when they drink, they're laughing hysterically. There's some guys that slur and fall down and like that's that. And you get to see all that in the SEAL teams. Yeah. Like, hey, dude, watch out. Freaking Fred's drunk. Stand by. We're going to be getting in a fight. Yeah. Or Fred's drunk. Help me carry him to the cab. Yeah. Or Fred's drunk. Dude, look at him. He's hilarious. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like, because we know all the for like the common name, right? Angry drunk, the lover drunk. Like, I feel like we all have, or these different characters, they're inside them even when they're not drunk. They just have the regulatory voice that's saying, hey, that's not that appropriate right now. Or if you get in a fight which you want to, you're going to get in trouble, right? You know how we all have the regulatory. So I think the angry drunk is inside. There's some anger in there. But it's just being regulated really well, which is good. That's what being a mature person is, right? But then, when you start drinking, that voice that says, hey, no, don't freaking false that guy or whatever, it gets all quiet, then false that guy. Then you're in a fight.
Gambling, pornography. You talk about those addictions in this book. And then you get physical health, man. Obesity, heart disease, nutrition-based issues. From 1999 through 2018, the prevalence of obesity increased from 30.5%, which is already freaking crazy, to 42.4%.
Yeah, it's almost half.
And the prevalence of severe obesity increased from 4.7% to 9.2%. Bro, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And, you know, one of the things I talk about in there, which I think is the symptom of that problem, is, you know, you hear about healthcare. Like, it's one of the most highly debated topics politically in our society. And, you know, everybody's trying to find this formula for the fix, you know, but the reality of it is that health insurance only works if most people aren't sick. Like, there is no formula that works when there's as many people sick as not. You know, it's just like with car insurance, like any type of insurance, you know, you're hinging or hedging your bet on the fact that most people aren't going to need it, you know, because with what it costs, even if you try to regulate costs, even if you know, subsidize stuff, even if you're, you know, importing things out
There's only so many people you could fit in a lifeboat.
Right.
Before the lifeboat's going down.
Yeah. And so, you know, when people politicians try to say, well, if we do this, like, you guys aren't looking at the problem. Like, the root cause of the problem is the fact that there's too many unhealthy people in this country.
Yeah.
There is no fix.
How do you think RFK rolling into the health department's going to impact, and when he starts changing some of the ingredients that are allowed to be put in food?
I just hope that he's able to. Mm-hmm. You know, that's my biggest concern, is between lobbying and, you know, the amount of people in our political structure that are tied into being benefactors of, you know, big food, big pharma, et cetera. That's going to be an uphill climb, you know, and he's probably going to meet resistance at every turn. I hope that he can do it, because it severely needs to be done. But he's got his work cut out for him.
I think one of the things that's going to benefit this next administration that's rolling in is the communication platform of X.
Yeah.
Because imagine when they start posting like what Doge finds.
Yeah.
When they say, here's what your taxpayer money went to.
Yeah. I mean, they've already started.
And here's who's trying to stop us from, you know, removing this ingredient from food.
Yeah.
Here's the lobby that's trying to do. Here's who they're connected to.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. I think the tools are in place to have impact like has never been made before.
For sure. Yeah. And to me, the scary part is the one weak link there is if Elon Musk had not bought X.
Oh yeah.
It would have never happened. You know, there would be no platform to expose that kind of stuff.
Did you ever do something like when you were in the teams, like make some crazy midnight purchase, like out at the bar? You know, like I had a buddy one time, and we get up the next day, and he comes rolling in, and he's wearing like an outfit. he had like cowboy boots on and like acid wash jeans, and he had been drunk and like made some crazy purchase, you know. You ever seen that happen?
Oh yeah.
Dude, what if your buddy rolled out and bought a social media platform for $44 billion?
Yeah, it's nuts.
And it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
It's freaking epic.
But, you know, I mean, as big of a percentage of his net worth that was at that time, like I think a lot of people at first saw, you know, the decline in shareholder value of it and whatever, and thought that he had made a huge mistake. But you look at it now, and I mean, his net worth since in the last year is, you know, almost doubled. I think. I mean, like, it's just crazy the amount of money he's made from doing those things, you know. And it's not even, to me, the brilliance and the beauty of it is that I don't think that it has anything to do with money for him, you know.
Yeah, I would say you're right. And especially because there's that interview with him where he's going, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You can have it. I don't care. I don't care about this anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, how many freaking Rolex watches are you going to get?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you're literally flying shit to Mars, bro. I don't know what else you're going to do.
Yeah.
But you're in a pretty good spot. So he doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
So he's and what I like about that is it's sort of the ultimate form of doing the right things for the right reasons and winning.
Yeah. And financially being in a position to do it and truly not give a shit or be beholden to anybody.
Mm-hmm. Damn, Doge coming in hot. And how freaking crazy is it that it's Doge?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. All right. Education system. You talk about that in here. The ranking was 38th. Our current ranking, despite United States having the second best education system in the world, consistently scores lower than many other countries in benchmarks such as math and science. And its education ranking was 38th in math scores and 24th in science. So we spend more money than anybody else, and we're losers.
Yeah. Department of Education. I mean, if you look at the correlation and the parallel between where we ranked as a society education-wise the year before Department of Education became a thing,
1979, I believe,
and where it is now, there is a 1-to-1 parallel that just nosedives.
Yeah. Nosedive.
Yeah.
Imagine that. You create a bureaucratic freaking managerial system,
Yeah.
and things get worse.
Yeah, imagine. Didn't see that coming.
What's funny is people on the surface, we're going to eliminate the Department of Education. Oh my gosh, why don't you care about education? No, we're just going to give the money back to the people that do the educating, the states. That's the plan. To me, like all day.
Yeah.
There's got to be some nervous people.
Oh, for sure.
In those bureaucratic jobs right now.
Oh, 100%. I mean, just looking at the, did you see the percentage of people that actually go into the office that work for the government? What the percentage is?
What is the percentage?
It's 6% that go between 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. 6% of the U.S. government does that.
Now, does that include like a mailman?
Well, so here's the beauty of it. When you remove security, police, those types of shift jobs that are required for people to do that, it's 1%. So 1% of the U.S. government goes into the office 5 days a week, 9 to 5.
There's going to be a reckoning.
Huge. I mean, I think you could fire 80% of the U.S. government and nobody would notice, except the people that lost their job.
That's what Elon did at Twitter.
Yeah.
Of course, we've all heard that over and over again.
Yeah.
Twitter's not going to work anymore. It's going down. Got more efficient. Sometimes I think that about my podcast staff.
I think that too sometimes.
As long as we're in agreement.
I think I'd fired at least 50%. I should be good to go. Okay, another chapter. How'd we get so fucked anyway? Overcorrection and the exaltation of victimhood. What's that all about, man?
So, again, kind of looking at we'll say the 90s as being the birth of political correctness on a larger scale. Going back to the 50s, where child rearing was pretty brutal, and I think most people would agree or argue that we as a society were probably harder on children than we should have been, and there weren't enough programs to prevent things like that from happening, CPS, et cetera. Enter the 1990s, and there's this highlight on that type of stuff, and in conjunction with speech and political correctness and things of that nature. And just like with a lot of things, the road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of mentality is that it's so bad. You see the same thing with like whether it's, BLM or certain trans rights things or whatever is that you see a problem and you fix it until it's broken the other way. The classic government adage, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. I mean, that's essentially what it is. But so the problem is you have an entire society that, is now walking on eggshells and is so overcorrected in terms of being politically correct and not punishing kids for certain things or not allowing, schools to punish children or having certain consequences for bad behavior as kids grow up and no accountability. Parents are now suing teachers instead of, corroborating or collaborating with them to say, hey, there's a problem with Johnny and we're going to fix it together. It's, how dare you talk to my son that way and we're going to sue you and, or pull the kids out or what have you. And so now fast forward a few decades and you have super self-entitled little selfish pricks that have never been corrected for anything, that, feel entitled to everything, have never been told no, have never had consequences for being disrespectful to teachers or being unruly in schools. And you've come full swing, the other way. And now it's equally damaging, just in a different direction.
Now, you know kids these days because you got kids yourself, right? There's a lot of kids that are freaking really awesome and normal. Are you not seeing that?
I don't know that I'd say that there's a lot of them. There are some.
I always feel, whenever I get in this conversation with people, I always feel a little bit like I'm a little bit of a bubble of some kind because I look at the kids that are around my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, kids.
Yeah.
You know, kids out there getting after it, doing what kids do. I don't see too much of the crazy, and like go to a wrestling tournament. Like kids are freaking, they're getting after it, man. They're training their asses off. They're hard. Go to a sporting event and the kids. Now, look, can you see the occasional kid that seems like a spoiled brat? Yeah, but I don't know. I see less of it. And also, do you think we've turned the corner a little bit on some of this political correctness? It seems like we certainly have.
I think so. We have. Again, this 3.5 years ago when the book was written, it was kind of at the
apex,
at the peak.
No, maybe not. It was heading
close.
Getting close.
I would also say,
your book corrected the course.
I like to think that. I don't want to say that. You said it. I think, in your sample of kids that you're around too, if you think about it, wrestling, athletics, I mean, athletics in general, that's not a very mean collective aggregate average of high school America. I would say go to a high school cafeteria at lunchtime and get a sense of where kids are at, or any classroom.
Echo Charles, next generation, because your kids are a little younger. Are you identifying yet? Are you seeing kids? Do they seem that much different?
I think I'm in the same boat to a degree as you, where I live in a bubble, and the kids that consistently come around my kids, now that's the key word, consistently, or I'm like, I don't see any entitlement at all, or like spoiled. Maybe I see some like, hey, like, bro, I just said what's up, say what's up back kind of a thing, but the kid's 8 years old, he's fired up, he's running and yelling and stuff like that, so it's like whatever. I don't see the entitlement, except every once in a while, I will see it, but I think it's like one of those things where you kind of correct for that, so if some kid who's spoiled, who's entitled, is coming around, it won't be consistent because I won't allow it to be consistent. So I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. But
I mean, to me, for all three of us, technically, it's all anecdotal, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I'd say the overarching crux as to why I wrote that book was exactly that: is that we all have our own experiences. What most people see as being, say, the top 10 problems in the United States are what? What's what you hear on the media, it's what you see on social media, it's what you hear people bitching about. But what does the data say? Because to me, that's really what's reflective of what the problems are. And between education and kids getting in trouble from a legal standpoint as they become young adults, like those numbers have absolutely fucking skyrocketed. And so, to me, like, I mean, all of the kids that are around my kids seem like pretty decent kids. Just like, some of the statistics that you see in the media a lot that aren't actually that big of a deal statistically and from a top 10 standpoint in terms of what's the most damaging or dangerous and threatening to the United States. They're not even in the top 50, but we hear about it all day long. And so to me, that was kind of the foundation behind the book was we're always distracted and arguing about things that, scientifically or data-wise don't really have that big of an impact on our society, but that's all we're focused on. What are actually the biggest things? Well, it's being a fat ass, heart disease, depression, alcoholism, opioid addiction, eating like shit and dying from heart attacks or arteriosclerosis. I mean, there's all these different things that are killing hundreds of thousands of people that nobody talks about.
I'm so glad that I covered my ass when I said I live in a bubble. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're right. I'm literally sitting here thinking about it, and I was about to counter you with the fact that a lot of young kids, again, that I have visibility on, guess what? They don't sit around and watch TikTok videos. They sit around and watch Jordan Peterson, talk about stuff. They don't waste their mind on brain rot. You know what brain rot is?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. They're not doing the brain rot thing. They're doing like the Andrew Huberman thing, right? So there's like a whole crew of people that are probably going to come out better, faster, stronger, smarter.
Yeah.
And there's a whole crew of people that are going in the other direction, and it's probably,
lopsided.
It's lopsided.
Yeah.
And your statistics that you point out in this book show that.
Yeah.
Also, too, when you say anecdotal or whatever, which is like that's a lot more significant than it might even feel sometimes, because and we talk about this every once in a while, where 40% or a big percentage of America is obese, right? Bro, how many obese people do you see in your day to day? Bro, kind of none.
Yeah.
But what are you doing? You're working out in your own gym by yourself. You're going to jiu-jitsu with other jiu-jitsu people, or Muay Thai, or fit, to fit, you're going back and forth or whatever, or surfing at the beach or whatever, all these active things. So it's kind of just by happenstance, your personal anecdotal experience, you're avoiding all of those people. See what I'm saying? So to you, they're no, there's no obesity problem.
I would encourage both of you to go to Lakeside Walmart and get your groceries tonight and see what the sample of caliber of person that's out there, It's probably going to be a little different.
A little bit different, yeah.
One of the things that you throw in here is escaping the echo chamber, which I think is obviously a very smart thing to do. Escape the echo chamber. No offense to Echo, our Echo here. Tell me about this echo chamber. I mean, we're all freaking locked in there. So your algorithm is set up for it. Your phone is made to get you trapped in there.
Well, and I think if you look at this current or this past current election, look at the from a media standpoint, the echo chamber that exists within the Democratic Party or the liberal side is pretty significant. Now, if you look at the two candidates on the right, they were constantly challenging themselves, going on heated debate, either whether it's podcasts or interviews with mainstream media that's liberal or left leaning. There's zero of that on the other side. You've got 4 years of media, politicians, candidates that are all just sitting in that echo chamber, agreeing with each other, never having to defend their positions, never being argued with, just basically complaining about all the same shit and it being kind of corroborated internally. And then once you get to the last few weeks of the campaign, where people are actually arguing and debating, and it's laughable. There's an inability to even answer simple questions because of that, because they haven't had to do that. And so the problem obviously is that one of the things I talk about in there is coming to the conversation with an open mind, which is a lot easier said than done, but it's crucial. You can't have an open mind and have a discussion with somebody if you're only living in an echo chamber. And also, you're never going to have good ideas if they're not being challenged. If you should welcome debate and welcome having your ideas challenged, for that matter, even welcome having your mind changed. I do. I mean, there's things I've certainly changed my mind that I was pretty adamant about, but over time and people making their case and challenging a certain position and me thinking through it, no, you know what, you're right. I actually agree with that and have changed my position on several things. But if you're never having to do that, that's never going to happen. So it's a very stagnant mentality that a good portion of our society, even if it's not somebody that's in politics, but let's just say you're on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok or whatever. But to your point, your algorithm is such to where all you get is the things you agree with, the things that already piss you off, that everybody else it pisses them off, and you guys get around each other and you complain about it. And that's all you surround yourself with, then you never go anywhere.
Dude, it was crazy in going up into the election to watch the other side.
Yeah.
Just be totally 100% convinced that, Kamala's going to win in Iowa. She's going to sweep. It was crazy to see that.
Yeah.
Not to be that confident about things. It was very strange to watch.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why is that, they spent 4 years patting each other on the back, and even lying to the American people. I don't know if they actually believed it or, it's a snow job or what, but it's the economy's great. I don't know what you're talking about.
That was
Joe Biden, sharp as a tack, smartest fucking guy in the room. Who the fuck do you think you're convincing that?
That was crazy, right?
Yeah. But
is that crazy, Echo Charles?
Sometimes it seemed a bit crazy. Yeah.
Didn't it seem a lot crazy sometimes?
It depends on what you mean, because you're asking my opinion on it.
Yeah.
I think that's how. I think this whole thing is entertainment. By the way, I've said that many times. Yeah. So under those circumstances, no, it's not crazy. What else are they gonna say? Is what I would ask, and only in the spirit of you asking me if I think it's crazy. I see what they're doing, and I agree with you that that's what I believe that they're doing as well. But what else are they going to say? And be like, oh, yeah, Joe Biden, he seems off. He's kind of losing it cognitively. What are they going to say? Oh, you know what? You're right. You guys are right about that. They're not going to say that. That would be kind of crazy, I think, for them to say that.
Dude, it's like saying the sky is green, though.
Yeah.
It's crazy talk.
But if that's the show, that's the show. That's how I see it. So, yeah, no, it was, I mean, I guess under certain circumstances, yeah, it's crazy, but no. The show is crazy. How about that?
Yeah, it's the Truman Show in real life.
Yeah.
So we got your methodologies to escape the echo chamber. Maintain independent thought. Number 1, take it upon yourself to discern what is bullshit and what is not. Be open to the fact that you may already be knee deep in bullshit and don't even know it. Be honest and don't practice blind allegiance to a political party or news outlet that you can't smell the stench of what you stepped in. It to this day, like even in the past several hours, the past couple days, I don't even know what the date is today. It is the 10th of December, 2024. There were some things that happened in the past like little while where I thought I didn't even fathom an alternative view. I like a non-unified view. For instance, the CEO of a major healthcare insurer gets gunned down and killed. And, I thought, wow, gun violence, like assassination, lawlessness. Wow, that's crazy. It'll, I'm sure I didn't have the thought of, I wonder what the division will be on this. I didn't have that thought. I didn't have it. I just thought, oh, the world will see this and go, wow, a crazy person has lost their mind and committed a murder. And it didn't take but hours before people were saying, yeah, but this healthcare company, they're bad.
Yeah.
And they are responsible for people's deaths as well. And therefore, this guy is a hero. Not just like, hey, I understand it. He's probably been through some real... I mean, as soon as I saw a health insurance thing, I was like, oh, this is a guy that either lost a family member or he's in some kind of pain himself and he's going out. But even with that, you go, that's a terrible, horrible, reprehensible thing to do. But no, it didn't take long. There's another branch of people out there that are going, this guy is a hero.
Yeah.
I saw a little clip of a professor at the Penn where this guy went to college. Never been prouder to be a Penn professor.
That's crazy, man.
What?
And that's an Ivy League professor.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can be so deep in this that you can find something like that happening, and you go, oh,
yeah, but yeah, blinded by your allegiance, and both sides are guilty. I think, something as simple as flying flags with politicians' names on them, I think is a problem. I really do. Now, do I think it should be illegal? Of course not. But I think what it does is it speaks to that idolizing of a political candidate, and I think. One of the chapters in there, Jay-Z isn't Jesus, is speaking to that. Is that we've idolized our politicians, and put them on pedestals as though they are rock stars or A-list actors or entertainers, what have you, and it needs to be the exact opposite. Like we all need to realize, hey, fuckwad, you work for us. Like we're going to hold you accountable, not the other way around. Like you're not going to tell us how things need to be. We're putting the people in those positions that reflect how we feel things should be run. And it doesn't really work that way, and I think social media does play a big and negative role, whether it's AOC on one side or, pick, some of the people on the right that fall into that same category with big followings that, are posting shit on TikTok and Instagram that's funny it's always, putting funny memes up or little skits that they do and shit like that. I think that's a mistake. While I understand people are trying to gain traction and following and influence and get reelected, the reality of it is that position should be considered, A, an honor, and B, something where, again, you're working for the American people, not the other way around. And it just doesn't seem like most politicians feel that way.
Another step to avoiding the echo chamber: spend as much time researching, corroborating, and verifying the information you receive as you do taking it in. Don't just believe something because you want to believe it or because you like the person who is telling you to believe it. If you want to believe it or you really like the person telling you to believe it, you should be researching even harder, knowing your own propensity towards bias. Yeah, there's a whole legitimate, proven bias that we have. If I like Mike and he tells me something, I kind of like your idea.
Yeah, which I don't blame you on that one. But yeah, I mean, it's the same echo chamber. If all you watch is one media outlet and you never see anybody else's perspective, I mean, if you want to see a kind of classic example of that being highlighted, especially like on election night or anytime something politically divisive is going on, that's like it's a breaking story, switch back and forth between Fox and CNN, and it's like, am I on the same fucking planet right now?
Two different movies are being watched.
It's like,
it's crazy.
It's like watching two people, that are dancing together, but to two different fucking songs, It's like, what the fuck's going on? But that's unfortunately the reality in the world that we live in, where, if I want it to be true, then I'm going to think that it is, and or I'm not going to take a lot of consideration or convincing to believe it.
Next one: listen, watch, and read news from varied sources and outlets. It's important to have as much well-rounded perspective as possible. It won't be perfect or unbiased, but it'll be far better than being glued to one fucking channel or media outlet and spoon-fed information without taking a deeper look into what's being presented to you. Yeah. This is something I picked this up in the military. Like, you want to get different sources of intel before you go and hit a freaking target.
Yeah.
Vote with your wallet. If you fundamentally disagree with the basis of a platform, stop using it. Don't engage it. And don't take part in creating a demand for it. Hold media outlets accountable and call them out for their dishonesty. Have you gone on to Blue Sky?
I haven't.
I haven't gone on. I've looked at a couple profiles on it, but just hearing the things that are going on it seems like it's totally insane. Do you know what Blue Sky is? I guess the guy from Twitter went and created something else, but now he's gone from it. And it's just the level 12 version opposite of X. X is just like free speech, do what you want, freaking don't hurt anyone. And Blue Sky is like, oh, you better be on board with everything and say the right things and you'll get banned. But what's crazy is it's like, perverted stuff happening. And well, that's what, that's my thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so therefore it's okay for me to post this craziness.
Like tolerance gone wild kind of.
Yeah, tolerance gone wild.
Dang, that's crazy.
Tolerance gone wild, yeah. But zero tolerance for no tolerance or for lack of tolerance.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing. You know what you need to have in a game?
Rules.
Regs. Referee.
You gotta have some rules to the game, man.
Yeah.
And if you stay within the rules, bro, it's good. You can kind of do what you want within the rules. Once you go outside the rules, though, you got to get told, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that thing. That's not, and I've gone off about this one other time. Just be normal. Like, do normal. This is not, what you're doing is not normal. And normal can be really big and really wide and have a lot of things in it. But then you go across a certain line. Now, this is not, what you're doing is not normal. You can't do that thing.
I feel like the bumper sticker for that is just read the room. I mean, get some T-shirts made up. I mean, whatever. But
Read the room.
Yeah, fucking
read the room, man. Take a look around.
Yeah.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
Well,
Sesame
I'm different.
Street.
Okay, you can be a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the issue with the normal thing. It's like, well, what's normal, blah, 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 But I dig what you're saying.
there is like a certain like bell curve you could put together.
Yeah, fully.
Yeah, you can do from here to here, but you can't go over there. And you can't go over there.
But at what point, I guess, and I'm not asking this, I'm saying this is kind of the question, I guess, is at what point did you go past the guardrails? You know, like I know you, Brad, you believe in guardrails, but your guardrails is pretty lax. Let's face it,
bro.
I know that, you know that, but it's like, well, what's the, prescriptive guardrail positioning for everyone?
Yeah.
And so it's got to be kind of flexible in some way. And then who's to say, wait a second, he can flex that much, but I can't flex like this much? Like, what's the difference? Kind of a thing. And then it's like, well, it kind of degenerates from there.
Yeah, but you got to be like, no, that thing you just did? Nope, that's over the line.
Yeah,
Can't
and actually, which kind of gives a lot more credence even, which I know you're at least partially serious with the read the room thing, where it kind of is that.
A little bit.
Because there's a lot of stuff like that you can kind of say in certain rooms, and it's like, who cares or whatever, and it's all good. And it can be pretty inflammatory. Yeah. But in other rooms, you can say way less inflammatory stuff, and it's like, bro, you shouldn't have said that, bro. Yeah. It's not appropriate. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you got to read the room. You got to be knowledgeable in that way. You know what I'm saying?
It's like what you guys talk about before the camera's on versus when the camera's on.
It's a very good example, sir.
Don't take it upon yourself to regurgitate everything you hear. I really like this one. Don't hit the share or forward button within 30 seconds of skimming an article or watching a video. Doing so only furthers a biased agenda and creates more of a divide. Some things need to be said, some information needs to be shared, but a whole shitload of it doesn't. Be discerning. Dude, people like to just freaking hit share or say.
Yeah, before they even finish reading the article. It's like not reading the instructions or directions on a high school test or whatever, that like the last thing says, don't even fucking fill this thing out, and nobody did it and they filled the whole thing out. And, it's just, again, it goes back to similarly to the echo chamber, I think, and the corroboration of things is, if it's one site that's like Sky News Network, fucking underground, whatever.com, and that's your source, it's probably bullshit. Like, I'm not saying that even mainstream media doesn't perpetuate bullshit, but if you're only getting it from one thing and you're not really looking into it and you just share it, like all that's doing is furthering the problem.
Mm-hmm. One thing that this makes me think about is the idea that people think that they have to have a formulated and solidified opinion about everything that's freaking going on.
Yeah.
There's so many things where I have an idea, but it's not fully formulated and it's certainly not solidified about what's happening. And there's a temptation to get in that game of like, oh, something happened? Let me tell you what I think. Let me tell you what I know. And it's like, dude, what do you know right now?
Yeah.
What does anybody know? There's another thing I brought back from like combat. Oh, reports are coming in that whatever. It's like, cool, that's the first report, and it's about to change 19 times before we know what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it begs the bigger question of why are people like that? Why do so many people feel so starved to be heard for certain things that, if you kind of think about it, it's like, who gives a shit what you think or even what anybody thinks about this? And I think, unfortunately, we're a victim of our own success as a society, and even as a species, really. If you think about human history as we know it, who knows fucking pyramids and before, whatever. But we'll say from when the Greeks were at the height until present day, the human experience is by far the easiest it's ever been right now in terms of survival, threats, predators, food scarcity, disease. And so, I think the human experience, condition, what have you, is designed to struggle, to need something to overcome, to need something to be fighting against and be challenged over. If that doesn't exist,
we're going to make it up.
You will fucking make it up, even if it's in your own twisted fucking brain. And I think when you couple that with physically not doing shit because you don't need to, and being raised on red dye number 5 and high fructose corn syrup, like that perfect storm of horribleness is why you have people that are that batshit crazy about things that don't even make sense, let alone, really warrant somebody being upset about, because they don't have anything else to feel passionate about, and I mean, I know I've had plenty of guests on. I know you have too, when you talk about the transitions from the military, and it's not the experiences that guys usually struggle with. It's going through those things and then now being in a vacuum of purpose, of having no real reason to get up every day. And then that's when you get depressed, and when experiences that you've been through manifest into problematic mind frames. And so when you have, all of those things kind of going on together, you have, again, just this perfect storm of a petri dish of horribleness from our society. And so I think if people just had a reason to get up and be passionate about something that didn't involve pronouns or, fucking blue hair or, whatever, abortion. There's so many things that, I find myself thinking, like, if that's the worst part of your fucking day, things really aren't that bad. Like if somebody isn't calling you by whatever fucking pronoun you need to be called by, like that's your oppression or, the thing that you're fighting against. You got things pretty fucking easy. Like you were born with a winning lottery ticket in your mouth, and you should probably just shut up and be grateful.
So when it comes to the next chapter in this book, it's about parenting, and it's called "Who the Hell Raised These Kids?"
Not you two, apparently.
Yeah. Your daughters are old. What?
19 and 18 right now.
Yeah. So. I was very cautious because it's been, when we start this podcast, 8 years ago?
Something like that. 9
years ago. So like when we started this podcast, my oldest kid was like 14.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, 16. And youngest was freaking 6. And so I was real cautious about saying anything about parenting because I was like, dude, the jury ain't out yet, bro. Like, who knows what's going to happen? These kids, you don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I think you can at your kid's age, 18 and 20, my oldest is 25. You get a pretty good feel for the trajectory of their lives. And, obviously when you put this book together, you start talking about some of the rules that you set up or some of the guidance that you give. And I think start with this one right here. Give kids independence and let them fall on their ass sometimes. So thing that I say is let your kids brush up against the guardrails of failure. The car's going to get a little dinged up. No one's going to get hurt. They're going to learn how to drive.
Yeah.
I also tell people a lot, treat your kids as adult as you possibly can. So like as much as you can let them do, the more responsibility you give them, the more responsible they become.
Yeah.
If you let them make that peanut butter and jelly sandwich when they're 5 years old, and it's going to take 20 minutes, and there's going to be freaking jelly on the counter, and there's going to be peanut butter on the floor, and it's just going to be a mess, and then it's going to take them 20 minutes to clean up. So it's a 40-minute evolution, which you could have done with one hand in like 1 minute and be clean and carry on with the day. You're giving them so much more education in life and so much more self-reliance. And you start doing that not just with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but with the laundry and with the freaking school lunch and the breakfast in the morning and the taking out the garbage. Like all those little things that you allow them the responsibility is going to make them that much better off. And sometimes they're going to mess it up. And that's going to be cool.
I agree. And I would kind of dovetail onto your second platoon OIC's lesson of, we don't have to do it, but is it the right thing to do? Like that, I think is parenting 101. Now, granted, they have to get to a certain age before you can implement that.
Yeah.
But once they do, I think you should all the time. It's like, I don't really feel like going to school today. Maybe that's not the best example, but as a hypothetical, it's like you could not go. Is it the right thing to do? Do you think that that's going to serve you well? Yeah. Okay. Do it then. Stay home. See what happens. Would I necessarily do that? Maybe I have.
I'll tell you one part of my parenting advice that I tell people all the time is if you can get your kids out of school for some reason, do it.
Yeah.
If you can take them to work, if you can take them on a trip, if you can take them to the thing, whatever, you got to go downtown and get permits from the city about the fence that you're going to build in the backyard, and you can take your kids to go do that. Go do it.
Yeah.
Get them out of that school. And if you can take them to do something cool, even better.
Yeah.
And that's going to be awesome. And to the point that you're making, I think a lot of times what kids mess up or what kids don't connect is they don't connect what's happening right now to their future.
Yeah.
Because they think, you know, what I'm doing right now, eventually everything's going to be cool. So I did career day. I did career day back in the day, many moons ago. And, you know, I was going to talk about being in the Navy. Like, okay, this is what you do. And, dude, who doesn't want to hear about being in the Navy, being a SEAL, about going to war, about carrying a machine gun, about shooting machine guns, about blowing things up, about jumping out of airplanes, about scuba. I got my slideshow. It's got scuba. It's got freaking draggers. It's got parachuting. It's got, you know, cool stuff. Hype. So I roll in there, and these kids were, I guess the age is maybe around 6th grade.
It's like 12.
Maybe 7th grade. So I roll in there. And by the way, you know, I'm in the team, so I'm talking to people on a regular basis. All good. I'm not like a boring speaker, right? So I roll in there, and I had to do it 5 times. So they broke career day up, and like they were going to their classroom and come in for 20 minutes or 25 minutes or something. I present to the little class, present to the little class, present to the little class. And I'm in the same classroom the whole time. The first one I do, I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Commander Jocko Willink. I'm in the SEAL teams, blah, 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 blah. I'm looking at the crowd. I'm reading the room. Dude, they don't give a shit. They don't care about anything that I'm saying. Like even the one kid that has like a Marines t-shirt on or something, he's like, doesn't care.
Yeah.
No one cares. And okay, next slide. Parachuting. Like no one cares. And so I do the first one and I'm trying to explain to them, no one really cares. I escalate the next one. You know, like, well, what are you going to do? What do you want to do with your life? By the time I get to the last one of the day, I'm saying, hey, listen up, kids. Here's the deal. There's 30 of you in this room. You fast forward 15 years from right now, some of you kids are going to own 3 houses. One in the mountains, one by the beach, and one out in the desert. You're going to spend time wherever you want. 3 of you are going to have 1 house. You're lucky. You're going to be here in San Diego. You're going to have a good job. You're going to have a house. Some of you are going to have a condo. Some of you are going to have an apartment. Some of you aren't going to have an apartment. Some of you are going to still be living at home. Some of you are going to be living in a car. And there's 2 of you kids in this room right now that are going to be living under the bridge down in Mission Bay.
At 12.
And it all starts with the decisions that you're making right now. This is where it starts.
Yeah.
The decisions that you're making right now. So that's my point, is that kids don't recognize that the decisions that they're making right now connect to where they're going to end up in the future.
For sure. And I think that's the litmus that I, even if it's subconsciously use, is if it's a decision that's going to be a detriment to their future, like I'm not going to let you fuck that up.
Obviously, yep.
You know, if it's something that, you know, yeah, it may be a pain in your ass, or, you know, it may be embarrassing, or, you know, whatever, then yeah, I'll ask you, hey, do you really think that's a good idea? Can you sell me on why that's a good idea? Okay, well, do it then, and we'll see what happens, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, I think there's too much helicoptering and not enough. I mean, look, the reality is, like, I would rather my kids make these mistakes while I can keep them between those guardrails and they can learn from it, versus the first time they've ever had the autonomy to make a bad decision is when they're 19 and living somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And now the repercussions are fucking astronomical, you know, that I don't want, you know, and I think too many parents raise their kids that way.
Yeah. And you're going to learn that through those consequences, right? If your kids are if your kids are making mistakes and there's no consequences for them, it's going to be a problem. And the examples that you were talking about, like, oh, your kid, you know, is in school and they get in trouble with the teacher and they come home, you know, oh, I I got a 0 on this test. Well, why? Well, you know, she didn't tell us about the test. But are you serious? She didn't tell you about the test? I'm going to go in there and talk to her and we'll get you that grade upgraded. Yeah. And instead of being like, oh, well, you didn't hear about the test? You're telling me that you tell me the whole class, no one knew about the test. That's what's happening. Like, well, no. Okay. So what do you got to do? Because what's your grade right now? It's a C-. Okay. So what do you get when you get a C-? Like, how's your world look when you get a C-? Are there privileges that you lose? It's another nice thing I learned in boot camp and officer candidate school. Privileges. You don't realize what privileges are, Echo Charles, when you're a kid. You don't realize. Don't give me that look. You don't realize that there's privileges that you have when you're a kid. You don't realize that it's a privilege.
Yeah.
You don't realize
the depth.
You don't realize the depth. You don't realize that a light in your room is privilege. You don't realize that a TV is privilege. You don't realize that an iPad is privilege. You don't realize that
hair.
You've heard the story. Hair is a privilege that you are not necessarily granted that hair. And boy, I caught some shit for that. Somebody clipped up that thing of me saying,
yeah, don't doubt it,
telling a story. But they clipped it out in a way because when I said that to my daughter had already been in trouble.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, again, she didn't do anything freaking crazy, but she had gone outside the bounds and I tightened her up. She was in trouble. And so then as I took away privileges from her, you know, phone privilege, because she was probably 14, 15. So she had the phone, took away the phone privilege, you know, took away the computer in your room privilege, took away the no curfew privilege because I didn't have curfews for my kids. And, you know, and whatever, a couple other things, right? But then later I'm joking with her, you know, as the privileges are coming back, you know, I'm like, okay, well, you know, hey, like, remember, you know, and this was, you know, pretty harsh, but it could be much worse. Well, how could it be worse, Dad? Well, you still have a door on your room, which I think was awesome, right? Yeah. A door on your room is a privilege. A mattress, you know, bedding, a pillow. And then, you know, jokingly I said, and hair, you know, and my daughter laughed and got the message.
Yeah.
Because it really is. It is a privilege. Like everything in life when you're a kid is a privilege. So when you can utilize those things to be removed from the situation, you can be in a pretty rough.
Yeah.
You can be in a pretty rough spot. And you can realize, oh, I am thankful and I have gratitude for these things that I have. But you can utilize those as a parent to help them learn lessons, take away some of those privileges. And the privileges can be given back. But those things happen in life. And like you said, you can make mistakes when you're 19 years old. Well, you can give up the privilege of freedom. You can give up the privilege of a future. You can give up the privilege of being able to walk by doing dumb shit.
Yeah. And I think to that, I think the key with communicating that to kids and really I think anybody is staying calm. You know, is where I think a lot of parents and myself, when they were younger, absolutely fell into that category is raising your voice, losing your temper, like becoming visibly angry about it. Because that's when they stop fucking listening, you know, whereas if you're like completely unemotional and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm taking this from you. And if you get this, then you'll get it back. Any questions? Nope. All right. Like if you say it that calmly, it's like, fuck. Like he's not yelling at me. He's not mad. Like he's indifferent. You know, it's like that's the best way to communicate that because they'll actually listen, and then now they're not taking it personal, and they'll actually hear it and reflect on it.
Yeah. So we got asked on Underground Podcast. Somebody asked about spanking kids, right? And so I was like looking at the questions, and I was at home, and I was looking at the questions. I was like, oh, well, no, I don't really spank my kids, and I didn't spank my kids, and then my kids were home. I was like, wait, I want to make sure, you know, confirm, because I don't want to be out here lying to the masses. And so my wife and my kids were sitting around downstairs, and I came downstairs and I was like, hey, I've got asked if I spanked, but I didn't spank you guys, right? And they're all like, nope. My wife's like, nope. And then they started with like, and my son ended up saying, I wished you would have spanked us. It would have been easier. It would have been less psychologically damaging. And we were all laughing because I would like just either... I had a couple protocols. I mean, obviously the privileges, but the other thing, I was just like not talk to them. Like if my kids were out of line, it would just be like, you know, you did the perfectly calm thing. I would just be like totally shun them for 3 days.
It's rough.
I don't recommend the 3 days worth of shunning. I think it's too much.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe a day worth of shunning. Yeah. But I would like be at the dinner table, and the salt would be on the other side of the kid that's being shunned, and I would ask the other kid, hey, pass me the salt, and just like act like they're not there. Total asshole. Sorry, kids.
I wish you would have whipped us. Take your belt off next
and
time.
you mentioned this whole idea in a section, create an environment for learning life lessons at home. That's what we just talked about. Don't raise a victim. How do you prevent that?
So, I mean, to me, there's a couple things. I mean, number one is don't reinforce it. If you coddle and set up an environment and reinforce that type of behavior, then, one of my favorite quotes by the godfather of operant conditioning, B.F. Skinner, as it relates to dog training, is anything that's reinforced is likely to occur again. It's true everywhere, not just in dog training, but, so if you create an environment where people are rewarded for being a victim, and there's no consequence for doing anything wrong, you're creating that, you're reinforcing that victim mentality, and that's just going to carry further and further into adult life, where there's going to come a time where it's going to be the shit or get off the pot moment, and nobody's going to give a shit, what they went through growing up, or, what they had to deal with at this point in their life, or, what person broke their heart, or what financial, hardships they're having, or what have you. And I think the sooner you do that, the better off the kid's going to be, and there's never going to be that almost purgatory of entitlement.
There is you got to figure out that time in life where you realize that you have agency and can take control of what's happening.
Yeah.
And look, there's going to be some things that are not in your control. We get that. But at a certain point, you go, oh, I made this mistake, and this is why I'm in this situation right now. I'll tell you what, the U.S. Navy drives that home real loud and clear. In even something as simple as boot camp, you're like, oh, I made this mistake. Now I am paying the man. Yeah. And that just escalates through SEAL training. Is like, oh, I made this mistake, and now I'm paying the man. Or I prepared, I planned, I was ready, we executed, got the job done. Now I'm in a good spot.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything in life.
Yeah.
And so if you can set conditions like that for your kid, so that when they do the right thing, the good outcomes, and you let them know that the outcome is because they were prepared and put forth effort. And when things don't go their way, it's like, oh, you didn't know about the test, huh? And that's the teacher's fault. No, that's not the teacher's fault. That is 100% your fault. And even if it is the teacher's fault, what can you do about it? You going to petition to have the teacher fired? The teacher's not getting fired. The teachers union owns the state.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to continue with a bad grade? No, you have to figure out what you can do to fix this situation.
And to me, there's a really critical component of that consequence part, which is being consistent and following through. Because that's where I see a lot of people, and I've been in situations with my kids in their teenage years where I'm not going to say that I'm better than other parents, but I would just say that most parents would have folded and said, okay, no, you know what? Stop. Let's figure this out. Like, come here, and not let them do what they were saying. Well, fuck it, I'll do this then. Okay.
Give me a good example. You got any good ones?
I'll do it off.
Okay.
There's too much personal information to share it, so I'll share it off camera.
Leif Babin has a good example of that, where he was telling his daughter, like, they were in Texas somewhere where there's like little stickers in the grass or in the yard.
Yeah.
And his daughter's like, he's like, hey, put your flip-flops on. Like, I don't want to. Hey, put your flip-flops on. I don't want to. Like, put your flip-flops on right now. No. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Liberty's little girl goes running across the yard, and sure enough, she made it, whatever it was, 5 steps. Yeah. It's like, hey. Yeah. So that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
She's not going to die. She's not even going to get injured. She's going to have some little pain.
Yeah.
But she's going to get that lesson learned.
Well, yeah, and I think, an older example where there's going to be more of that, like in that case, not that it's not a good example, but there's really no skin in the game for Leif. Like, he's not losing anything by that. Let's say, fast forward to, hey, if something happens and if it continues or you don't remedy this, you're not going to prom. It's like, okay, well, I want you to go to prom. Like, I want you to have that experience. I would love for there to be pictures. Like, I want you to have that as part of your high school experience. So something happens to where the deal was, if you don't satisfy this requirement, you're not going to prom. That doesn't happen. A lot of times, well, fuck. Mm-hmm. Okay, but we'll figure something else out. But, it's like, no, you don't get to go. Yep. I will use one example for that. My kids were probably 7 and 9 at the height of Halloween, being fucking varsity activity.
Damn, dude.
They're dressed up. We're ready to fucking go. Halloween's canceled. Sit the fuck back down. You're not going out because you lied to your mom and I, like straight to our face about something important. So we're going to sit here and have a come to Jesus for 20 minutes. You can take the shit off and we're not going out. Like, that sucked.
Yeah.
I love Halloween. Love going out with the kids, especially at that age when it's magic. And we didn't, I will say there's times where I still feel bad about that, but it's like, and so I would say, let that also caution you is that don't have a consequence be something that's going to kick you in the dick so much
100%.
To where if you have to follow through with it, you're like, man, and you regret it, so, be strategic.
Yeah. One time my son did something that was, not approved and he was a pretty little kid. And I went a little too hard in the paint, and I put him on a very Spartan protocol for life. And it was very, very Spartan. And he was maybe 6 or 7, young. And it was like very strict wake up protocols, room inspections. Like, I really went hard on him and removed basically all privileges as a child. And it hurt. It sucked, but I was doing it. And so then he slowly, and so I had said to him, like, look, I have to be strict with you because, this is not going to be good for you in the long run. I got to be strict with you. And so little kid, he understood, okay, this is what strict is. And then as he earned privileges back and, got his stuff back and started living a more normal childhood life, and then something happened and he did something a little bit, brushing up against the guardrails a little bit. And I was like, hey, listen, do you want me to have to be strict again? And he looked at me, little kid, and he goes, maybe that's what's going to be best for me. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh no, this poor kid, I created a freaking monster. Maybe that's what's best for me.
Oh, that's great. God, it's 6. That's gnarly. Yeah, man.
That was like the first time he asked for a haircut, and I shaved his head, and I got done, and I go, okay, all done. And he looks at me, he goes, do I look more like a soldier now? And I was like, I got a tear in my non-shooting eye. Oh, it's classic. All right, so you go through. You already talked about the Jay-Z isn't Jesus type stuff, but you go into this personal protocol, and this is sort of the meat of the book. And I don't want to get into every subject that you cover, but you cover this protocol for assessing important issues and subjects. And so I don't want to go through all of them, but I want to talk about your protocol that you use. You say, I'd like to offer 4 cornerstone principles that can be used as a guide for assessing and approaching any important subject, issue, or problem. If every individual implemented the practice of utilizing these principles, I think we'd see a lot of change. It's a 4-step process. Here's how it works. Number 1, remove emotions. Number 2, remove politics. Number 3, mind your own fucking business. And number 4, hold yourself to the same or higher standard that you hold others to. That's it. So talk to me a little bit about this protocol. What are we doing with this protocol?
Well, so I would say the backbone of it is removing the predispositions that I think inhibit us to be able to have conversations with people that we disagree with or that we're trying to, raise, children-wise, et cetera. If you look at, all of the divisive things that take place in our country and you follow those 4 things, like how many of those actually are problems that people are arguing about now? Like pick any political hotbed topic that you've seen in the last, say, 6 or 8 months leading up to the election. and put them through that ringer first. And do you still have an argument?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No. So, and I think not necessarily in that order, but number 4, especially politically, now all of them I think are important, whether you're talking with neighbors, again, kids, people in your community. The higher up you go, I think the more you kind of need to go in reverse order, but especially in politics, and both sides are horribly guilty of this, is my guy did it and I'm going to look the other way and that's fine. But the second your guy does it, like we're going to shine a fucking interrogation lamp on him and we're going to spend 3 weeks talking about it, and it's like, pick a topic and that's the case, So again, I just think like if everybody going into anything that they're pissed off about or that they're trying to argue with somebody about, if you go through that checklist, 9 times out of 10, you're not even going to have the argument with somebody because that's going to you're going to realize, fuck, I'm wasting my time and I'm a hypocrite. If it does lead to that, you're at least going into it with all of those boxes checked, saying, okay, well, there's no emotion, there's no politics in it. I'm holding my side to the same standard, and that's going to get rid of it. So even if you do end up still getting in an argument with somebody, you've kind of taken so much of the teeth out of it to where now you can just have an actual discussion about it and not sit there just screaming at each other where neither side is listening to one another.
Yeah. Don't get emotional about it, which is very difficult because some people are hyper emotional about things. And sometimes it's a good reason, sometimes somebody was on welfare when they were a kid. And so therefore welfare is a hugely important thing and they're super emotional about it. So you got to be like, okay, got to remove that emotion, remove the political. Well, I'm right wing and right wing is against welfare. So I'm against welfare. So let's get rid of that. Mind your own business. How is that applying to the welfare thing?
Well, so to me, I guess from a welfare standpoint, it's, if it doesn't affect you, then don't worry about it, and again, how many things, like take abortion as probably the most classic example of that is, or gay marriage, or, there are a litany of different things to where it's like, take one step back, again, get rid of the emotion in politics and then ask yourself, like, does this fucking matter to you? Like, does it really affect you? If it doesn't, if it's somebody else doing something that they like, they're passionate about, and it doesn't impact you, then stop fucking worrying about it. Too many times people, whether it's in communities or on a national level, whether it's your neighbor or, at a federal level, is that people are pissed and worried about things that don't really affect them. Mm-hmm. But they'll die on that hill. They'll sit there and spend hours arguing with somebody about it. They'll get emotional about it. And they'll let it, border on control their life for something that doesn't even have any relevance. I actually got in trouble for telling somebody to mind his own business on social media a couple of years ago, which is a whole nother story. But it was funny because there was a ton of comments asking like, oh, where is it in your book where it says mind your own fucking business? It was like fucking page 91 in this paragraph. And that's a funny story. I'll share it with you after the show probably. But
yeah, one of the other things I was thinking about this as I was reading it was really trying to understand what the other person's perspective is. And this is something I picked up. Like if you and I were planning for a mission and you were like, I think we should hit the target from the south. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I think we should hit it from the north. Instead of me thinking I'm right, you're wrong. I'm like, okay, why does he want to, okay. Why do you think it's better to hit it from the south? You're like, well, we're getting inserted over here. There's a possible IED over here. There's a bad terrain feature over here. And look at this like nice little high ground we can take to overwatch as we move in from the south. I'm like, oh, actually, that makes pretty good sense. Or I say, hey, you know what? That's all good, Mike. What I forgot to tell you is that there's going to be a fire mission that's going to be going to the south. I didn't tell you that. It's my fault. So we can't actually come, oh, okay, cool. So now we have a real conversation, but I actually want to know why you think that's better. And I think if you can do that, normally you can at least find some level of understanding of that other person's perspective. All the way down to you almost, I was kind of doing it a little bit when we were just talking about this killer, this murderer of the CEO of United Healthcare, because I immediately almost went into like, hey, listen, that guy probably has a family member that suffered of this and that. The thing is, with that particular case, you go, even with that perspective, I can't say, yep, go ahead and murder the CEO of the company. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But most of the time, in many cases, unless the person is crazy, or like I've often said, like, hey, unless you're ISIS or like a dyed-in-the-wool communist, like I'm going to be able to figure out some little common ground that we have somewhere, right? Like we're going to be able to figure something out. But if you're, in this case, it's like, oh, now you're going to murder a person in cold blood. It's not okay.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's like, oh, here's what you think. Oh, you believe in welfare, or you believe in whatever the thing is, right? You believe in whatever the thing. I'll often, okay, well, I understand. I at least have some comprehension of where you're coming from. And in my mind, I actually try and figure out how I can help make them right. I actually want to believe what you're telling me. When you tell me some political opinion and I'm like, dude, this guy's an idiot, I immediately know that that's my ego, it's my emotions, it's my politics. And I go, okay, stop, listen, and try and figure out how Mike can be right about this particular topic that he's talking about. How can I agree with him?
Yeah.
And I work my ass off to try and figure that out. And most of the time what I figured out was like, you know what? This opinion that I have, not fully formulated and probably shouldn't be stabilized yet.
Yeah.
It probably shouldn't be poured concrete. Yeah. There should probably be some room to breathe, because the world is a crazy, complex place. You know, you and I talked about on the podcast, on your podcast, the amount of variables that are in war. And that's the same thing with so many complex topics that there are. That why would you pour your opinion into concrete and have no ability to maneuver?
Yeah. One of the things I say in there, not on that page, but later in the book, is listen to understand, not to respond. Mm-hmm. Which is huge. And I think Jordan Peterson does an exercise in his couples therapy, mm-hmm. where he says, if you're in an argument with your spouse, he'll have them flip sides. And say, okay, now you're arguing her point to you and vice versa, to really force you to understand where that other person is coming from, which is pretty brilliant. But I don't know how well it would work in some cases. I can see that going off the rails pretty quick. But well, the reason I think that is because I'm a fucking idiot, and I just start bagging on yourself.
Well, listening is I always explain that listening is one of the absolute most underrated skills in being in leadership, and it's also the cornerstone of building relationships with people, is listening to what they have to say. As a matter of fact, again, when I was on your podcast, one of the questions from the audience was, what do you do with someone that's not listening to you? And very quickly I responded, you listen to them.
Yeah.
If someone's not listening to you, you need to listen to them. Find out what's going on. The more you listen to them, the more likely they are to listen to you. And 99% of the cases in the world, when you start listening to someone and taking notes on what they're saying and trying to incorporate their views into things, they will eventually start listening to you. Is there one? It's not even 1%. It's like 0.001% that's just a freaking lunatic.
Yeah.
You probably don't. If you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, oh, you see, I knew it. I knew that guy was the guy that wasn't going to listen and I should just beat him down. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You don't have that person. That person doesn't even function in society normally.
Yeah. For you in those environments, is there a statement that you use typically to open that door to listen, or is it just totally dependent on the person, the topic, the situation?
I might say, like, dude, what's wrong? And I'll generally speaking, trying to take some kind of an ownership of the situation. Like, hey, Mike, I don't think I'm doing a good job of understanding your perspective. Can you tell me what you're thinking right now? If it's your kids, hey, listen, kid, I can see that you're mad right now. Obviously, I'm not understanding what's going on. Can you explain to me what your viewpoint is? If it's your spouse, hey, darling, I can see that I'm not doing a good job of understanding what's happening. Can you share with me? If it's your boss, hey, boss, obviously, I've done something that was out of line. I want to know what that is. Can you help me see it? Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? You see what I'm saying? It's just like asking and taking ownership of the fact that you're not comprehending what's going on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's a good way to do that. And like then to your point, or I guess you made via Jordan Peterson, the intention of listening isn't then to come up with a response.
Yeah.
The intention of listening is to nod your head, get out your freaking notebook. Dude, I used to do that when I was in the teams. Like somebody comes to me with some problem, I'm getting out my notebook. Get out my notebook, I'm going to write down what the hell you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're going to know, like, damn, dude, the boss is taking notes on what's going on. That's a pretty positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I really like these protocols, running things through these protocols so that you can actually freaking calm down and understand things better. And you do it, dude. You apply this methodology in the book. You cover a bunch of topics from borders to guns to the economy to a bunch of social issues to foreign policy to environment. You cover it all, and you kind of break it down and show these different perspectives. And I think that's a good methodology for actually teaching people how to do this when they get to watch you do it throughout the book, which is freaking solid. And then you get into the last chapter of this book, which is very uniquely titled You. You say this. That's why I want to end this book by sharing with you a handful of things that you can put into practice immediately in your own life. All of these are things that I strive to practice in my own life. They are things that I have seen proven time and time again to have a positive impact both in the lives of individuals as well as society at large. I am by no means perfect or feel that I have arrived at any of these points, but you can bet your ass that I wake up every day doing what I can to progress, grow, and learn.
Most days.
The first thing you talk about is shift your mentality. In many ways, this book has been all about shifting mentality and perspective. The word mentality is defined as the characteristic of attitude or way of thinking of a person or a group. All of us should make it our mission to pursue independent and informed thinking, to check and recheck our mentality about ourselves and the world around us constantly. It is a journey that each of us will be on for life. There are two mental shifts that I believe can do the most good in your life as an individual and as a society. And the first one is think for yourself. And dude, this is what, it's weird. I remember when I was a kid and I was always liked war and liked to learn about war and study war. And, I remember even as a little kid watching like PBS shows about the Nazis, and you would see the Germans and you would see like the mass hypnosis of the people, like all freaking Sieg Heiling, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And it seemed, for many, many years of my life, it seemed like a unique thing. Like a thing where it's like, oh, dude, that guy Adolf Hitler had some freaking kind of magical power. He had some kind of charisma. And then you learn a little bit more like, oh, it's also because the German economy had been crashed so bad. So that's another reason why the people were kind of down for the cause. Oh, and then also you learn that after the Treaty of Versailles, the German people, like they felt like they got screwed in that whole time. So now they're even more down for the cause. So by the time Hitler comes around, like you just have this mass of people unique in human history that was ready to get on board with the program. But man, in the last like several years, it's become much more obvious how just completely pliable people's minds are. And the only reason that we don't have a mass movement like that unified right now is because there's just all these little mini mass movements that are going all the time. Yeah. And people are freaking scrolling through their phone and they're getting sucked down to that algorithm thing. And next thing you know, they're on some weird freaking belief system that's crazy, that's leading them to become angry and frustrated and psycho. And the Nazis did that to a whole bunch of people at the same time. They happened to unify that message and they got them all going. But it's sad to see this happening now with all these little offshoots that you can go down and you can get wrapped up into these rabbit holes where you're not thinking for yourself anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it speaks to the lack of purpose that so many people have, is that they don't really have anything that they're that passionate about, and when you don't have that, again, like we said, you'll figure something out. Your mind and body will gravitate towards something. And the problem is that, that passion needs to be real. It needs to be, an ignited fire kind of coming from your soul. And if it's something that's trivial, then it's going to seem ridiculous because it is. But it doesn't mean that you're any less passionate about it. It's just what you're being passionate about is a pretty trivial thing. But to you, it's all relative. It doesn't feel trivial because that's what your thing is. And so I agree. It's an alarming time to see, or it makes more sense now where it's like, okay, now I get how Nazi Germany happened. And I think a lot of people have kind of come to that realization over the last few years of seeing, people, when Trump was shot. I mean, fuck, a good portion of the country, was like, wish they would have hit him. It's like, what? It's like, I don't like Biden. I don't want to see him get fucking assassinated. Like, what am I missing? Like, how's there that many people that are okay with that?
Yeah.
And same with the healthcare CEO, same thing. Like there's there's always going to be a portion of the population that cheers those things, that, is okay with that and applauds something like that. But it seems like the balance is so far tipped now to where there's so many people that are okay with dehumanizing people that they disagree with over some of the littlest things, that they're it's like they're now an inanimate object almost, and they could fucking care less. There's no kind of human connection to that person because, well, they don't believe what I believe, and so they could have their head cut off and I wouldn't care. It's frightening.
Yeah. When I was growing up, my dad's a real conservative guy, and real conservative. And one of our family friends was old, like crazy, what we would call like a crazy liberal guy. And we had dinner with this family thousands of times growing up. And my dad and this guy, who were on absolute opposite ends of the political spectrum, would freaking sit there all night and argue and make fun of each other and bring up facts and go at each other's throats metaphorically. And at the end of the night, I have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. Like, and that just, I don't think that really happens anymore.
It doesn't. And I do wonder, or I suspect that social media and the internet's played an enormous role in that, for the simple fact that and kind of the political correction, overcorrection of not being able to handle things the old-fashioned way. Like, it was interesting. My Uber driver on the way here was from Chechnya. We, of course, got to talking about Dagestan and wrestling and fighting and the differences between, I'm like interviewing this guy on the way here, but it, our society.
Where does he train?
He doesn't train here. You may see him coming through the victory doors here pretty soon. But
could use some of that.
Yeah. He fought twice. Won 2 amateur fights in Chechnya, and he's like, in Chechnya growing up, like, you either wrestle or you do judo. That's part of school. For everybody. He's like, boys, you do one or the other, and there is no choice. And just the stark contrast between the two societies. But he was saying one of the things that surprised him the most here, because we were at a stoplight and somebody like pulled out and somebody was honking and flipping him off and yelling out the window. And he's like, that never, ever happens in Chechnya. He's like, nobody talks shit to each other. Nobody fucking flips anybody off. He's like, if you flip somebody off, you better be ready to fucking fight right now. And nobody gives a shit. It's like people knock each other's teeth out for mouthing off or for flipping each other off or whatever. It just doesn't happen. He's like, in Chechnya, like, if you pull out and there's some sort of disagreement as to a traffic maneuver or whatever, like, people will ask, are you okay? And do you need any help? Like, it's not an aggressive, you're fucked up, get out of my way. It's, is everything okay? Like, do you need a hand? Like assuming you're screwed up because something's wrong. It's just like a polar opposite mentality. But back to that kind of point is that, we live in a society now where, I mean, you can say fucking anything to somebody with absolutely zero consequence. I mean, you can, insult their family, their mom, their kids, their spouse, them. I mean, you can threaten them, frankly. I mean, I'm sure you've seen stuff too where people will say shit just like, dude, how the fuck is that? How is that what you think? You know, like some of the comments on YouTube or on social media, which I admittedly don't read very much of or very often, but sometimes some have gotten my attention because of how egregious they are. But I think that's part of it, is that, you know, it's like there's no consequence for talking to somebody in any manner, like the most vile, disgusting, offensive, threatening, disrespectful manner. There's absolutely no consequence for it, you know, and I think that's a problem. When you couple that with the fact that the weird timing of texting and social media and comments is that, you know, having a discussion or even a disagreement with somebody, you don't have time to think about it that much, right? So everything is really off the cuff. Like when you have just enough time, like you may spend minutes or even hours figuring out how to respond to somebody's smart ass comment. And so you have, you know, all of these like one up, I gotcha, catch me, fuck me, trick fuck kind of comments on social media where people are, you know, have these well thought out things. There's no emotion behind it. You can't see the person's face. You can't humanize them at all because it's just, you know, text on a little screen in your hand. And I think that changes the way people view each other.
Yeah. The idea, like I'll see on social media, of someone will say, you know, well, that's bullshit. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And you know, the last time I said fuck you to another person, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like that's and the last time someone said that to me, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like for someone to look at me and say fuck you, like that is a
you don't do it.
Extreme kind of crazy thing that's going on. Like we're about to fight.
Yeah.
Or I did something to you that like we are now enemies. But for just to be, it's like a Tuesday afternoon and I'm going through this person who's talking about Biden or Trump or whoever, and my response is, hey, if that's what you think, fuck you.
Yeah. Is that serious?
That's where we're at. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So yes, social media I wonder how that bleeds over to like real life.
Well, it doesn't.
So, but no, let's say you're a kid. Let's say you're a 15-year-old kid and you're on social media and you're telling people fuck you and this and that and the other thing. And now all of a sudden you're in a movie theater and someone's talking and you tell them to be quiet and they say, you know, I'm not, you don't tell me what to do. Do you immediately just go to like, fuck you, and now we're fighting and like, I don't know.
I think there's an element of that. I do think that deep down, even if it's hardwired genetic, is that I think people still understand the primal nature of human beings and kind of what exists. And so I think it depends on the person in person. I think there's a lot of people that would talk a ton of shit online, and if you saw them in person, they wouldn't talk to you that way. But I think, you know, it depends on who that other person is. With kids, yeah, I think a lot of them would go right to, you know, saying what they would type in social media. I do think as you get older and you get a sense of how somebody carries themselves, their presence, their nonverbal communication, eye contact, things like that plays a big role. Again, I don't even think you ever have need to have been punched in the mouth or been in a fight to realize when you're in the presence of somebody who absolutely will fuck you up, you know, for being disrespectful. I think people recognize that even if they've never been in a fight.
Yeah, there's a little bit of primal activity going on there. One thing you say about this one mentality shift is something that you can begin pursuing right now. Start asking questions, start thinking for yourself, educating yourself, researching for yourself, expose yourself to a variety of deep thinkers, innovators, philosophers, political leaders, experts, and friends who think both similarly and different than you. Certainly something that if you don't actively try and make that happen, it won't happen.
Yeah.
If you just, look, it's so much more comforting just to hang out with a bunch of people that think what I think, and I don't want to hear from anybody else. And by the way, your algorithm is set up to do that for you.
Yeah.
And you go into the fact of voting. Here's another thing that you talk about, which I guess you could say I fully, wholeheartedly support this. Take responsibility. No matter who you are or what stage of life you are currently in, it's important to remember that someone is looking at you. You are an example to someone, and you are an influence on someone. That alone should be a weighty responsibility. It is one none of us should take lightly. Take responsibility and ownership for what is yours. Don't blame your problems on other people. Put your head down and own the shit that's yours to own. If you made a mistake, don't pretend you didn't. Don't try and cover it up. Look it square in the face, own it, and take action to grow from it. In doing so, you'll show others that it's okay to fall down and get back up. I wrote a whole book about that. Actually, it's only one chapter in that book, but yeah. Take ownership, everybody. And then you get into this trifecta of health. 3 components. Get the fuck outside, get off your ass, get proper fuel. Step 1, get the fuck outside. Why is that?
So taking one step back, the book highlights, like I was kind of saying, the premise behind it is, there's all these data points that speak to much bigger problems than what typically is focused on in the media. It can be a daunting thing to see all of these issues, these data points, and be like, holy shit, our country is in kind of a mess. And now it's the daunting part is, what can I do about that, right? It's like, well, you can vote and you can set the example. I don't know what the adage is all high tides raise ships, or whatever the hell that is. I know I messed that up. Whatever it is, you get the point, right? Do you know what it is, Echo?
High tides raise all ships.
All right, that sounds about right.
But hey, you know what?
Yeah.
All high tides do also raise ships.
All high tides.
We're good either way.
It's the highest it's ever been. But that's the reality, is that so if everybody, attacks that same problem of saying, okay, well, there's not a lot that I can control, but the things that I can control are me. So those first 4 kind of protocols of how you approach everything, coupled with the fact that, okay, well, I can keep myself healthy, because the reality is our country's biggest problem is drug addiction, alcoholism, and heart disease, right? By far, those 3 things kill way more people than guns, than, everything else by a landslide. By getting outside, getting sunlight, the Huberman protocols of getting off your ass, staying active, and having that implemented as part of your routine is going to be super beneficial. The second thing is fueling your body appropriately. Same thing is that stop rinsing Snickers bars down with Mountain Dew, and eat, nutrient-dense whole foods that are relatively healthy most of the time. And then, exercise and make your body strong and do those right things. So those 3 things, staying active, eating properly, and exercising, take the biggest strain off of our society, because if you're doing that, you're not an alcoholic, you're not addicted to drugs, and you're not clogging up our healthcare system. But even beyond that is that, mentally you're going to be the most capable, you're going to be the most productive physically and mentally, which is just going to, be an asset to the country. And if everybody does that, if everybody maximizes their own potential, the collective average of the country is way above where we're at now, and those are things that you can control.
Mm-hmm. You talk about getting off your ass, and we were talking earlier about the fact that you were on this podcast before 6.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And after that podcast, at some juncture, you got off your ass and you started training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
What was that all about? Let's talk jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Charles, step up to the mic.
I already stayed pretty active working out, but, jiu-jitsu is one of those things where I know that, the cost benefit of juice being worth a squeeze. Like, if you're going to be active and you're going to put effort into a physical activity, I think you'd be hard pressed to find one that gives you the return that jiu-jitsu does, for so many reasons, which I know you guys have talked about at length. Another part was, which I mentioned on the last show, but I'll mention again for your listeners, is the Andy Stump had the Ask Me Anything, and somebody was like, who's going to win in a fight between Ritland and Rogan? And Andy was like, Rogan had fucked Mike up. And I was just like, well, fuck you. It's like, I don't care if it's even true. Like, it's like, I should probably do something about that. Not that I didn't feel like I could at least somewhat handle myself, but not to the degree with which somebody who trains a lot and gets, to be a pretty seasoned jiu-jitsu athlete, or even combatives, because I don't compete. I don't focus on points or positions. It's all very kind of MMA or real world focused, with starting from feet and, doing takedowns and even throwing little strikes in here and there and being mindful of the fact that that's a thing. And generally speaking, no holds barred. I mean, we're not gouging eyes and shit, but we're doing a lot of things that aren't legal in competition, and just kind of focusing on that as a mentality. But for me, I found a huge, I would say, kind of release and balancing mentally with just, whether it was ego or temper or frustration, things that I didn't really expect as a consequence, as a positive consequence of doing it, but that have been just overwhelmingly beneficial for me with, being more patient and letting things go and like not letting certain little things bother me and what have you. And it's been an amazing journey. I wouldn't say that like it runs my life and I'm addicted to it, but I absolutely love doing it and I have to do it. So I don't know, maybe I am addicted to it.
Yeah, we do call that an addiction. How many times a week do you get to train?
It varies. I mean, I would say on the most I'll do in a week is 4 days. That's pretty rare. It's usually 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. For me, I do find that sweet spot of 2 or 3. If it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or at least one day in between training for me is pretty important for me to be able to recover and not feel like I've been hit by a bus when I get out of bed every morning. But I train with a young, very skilled black belt, mostly private lessons, and even the occasional group class that I'll do is there's usually some pretty competitive guys that are half my age and pretty athletic and make me feel fucking old, but I love it. And to me, the kind of the 3D chess component that just never gets old, Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, it's, to use kind of a band reference, is like striking is kind of like drums, whether it's Muay Thai, kickboxing, or whatever. Like there's only so much variance combination wise that you can really bring to the table.
That's a freaking good one.
Jiu-jitsu is the guitar. It's the electric guitar with wah pedals and fucking effects, and you can bend the strings and sweep
an entire
pick
fretboard. And by the way, look, dude, drummers and drumming can be in totally insane, complicated craziness. It's awesome, but it doesn't. The amount of complexity and infinite number of opportunities on a guitar fretboard
are tenfold.
Just like tenfold.
Yeah.
And so, that's a really good, I always just say it's like linear versus non-linear, and there, you are limited in boxing. What can you do?
Yeah.
Only so many things you can, and look, a boxer will be like, well, no, there's this, and they're right. And every one of those things that you can, every one of those variables in boxing, let's say there's 10,000 variables in boxing, you can multiply that times infinity to get to jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
I mean, there's just that, there's the you're never finished component to it. Mm-hmm. Like there's always some other level or whatever. And I feel like with boxing or, really any type of striking, you get to a certain point, and I don't think it takes that long before you're kind of as good as you're going to get. You're not going to, because so much of it is hinging on speed and athleticism and quickness and reflex and a lot of those things you can't change, mm-hmm. So it seems like, I mean, I haven't done a ton of striking, but I've done enough to where it's like, within a certain point and relatively soon, you're about as good as you're going to get at that. Mm-hmm. Whereas jiu-jitsu, it's just like, it just keeps going,
Just FYI, there is crazy levels to striking too. Like if you ever train with people that are what would be considered like a jiu-jitsu black belt in striking, and you are getting worked over the same way.
Agreed.
As like we Mike Ritland, remember Mike Ritland at City Boxing? He was like a champion kickboxer Muay Thai guy. Like you think about kicking him and he's checking your kick and like returning and it hurts way worse than what you threw at him and he doesn't care. Yeah. Or Robbie Garcia, who was like the hitman, like he hits you with a body shot, like you're sparring, you're throwing, boom, yeah, dude. So, and they can just work you over. Yeah. That being said, there's an even more exponential level change in someone that is a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Well, I guess to clarify, like I'm not insinuating that there aren't the same amount of levels of skill in striking. what I think is that individually your ability to progress is far more limited. You know, like if especially if you didn't grow up doing it, you know, it's like if you take say a 25-year-old in good shape, you know, decent athleticism, and you start putting them through the paces, boxing, Muay Thai, what have you, you know, within probably a couple of years, he's probably about as good as he's going to get. You know, even if he trains for the next 15, he may get a little better. I don't think there's the same learning curve in striking that there is in jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu learning curve is definitely an apex learning curve for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way it works. And it doesn't stop. That's what, you know, people ask me like, oh, who would win? The 53-year-old Jocko or the 25-year-old Jocko? That's no contest. The 30-year-old Jocko is no contest. Actually, myself, like 6 months ago, no contest. You know, so you get better all the time.
Yeah. And
you learn all the time. And you can just, the difference, and there's a huge difference between like black belt, that black belt, you know, guy over there and that other black belt guy over there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is next level activities that are going on.
Yeah.
So it is definitely do your kids do it?
They have. So my youngest trains, I'd say, more MMA style now.
Oh, sweet.
She does a fair bit of striking as well. So both of them did it when they were real young for several years. And then for a period, neither of them did it for a little while. My oldest wrestled in high school, which was great.
All years, 4 years of wrestling?
3.
Okay.
But it's neat to see, a women's wrestling team, at a Texas school. It was also great in that they didn't have a ton of kids on the team, so they end up having to wrestle the boys a lot, which is good for them, And so now
did the jiu-jitsu cross over pretty well to her wrestling? Did she have enough jiu-jitsu to make it an impact?
Yeah, I think it was like with a lot of kids. It was a little problematic at first. Just being comfortable on your back versus no, you never go on your back, but that doesn't last very long, So now I would say even that, when we'll still kind of mess around a little bit, she's still pretty heavy in the wrestling, the collar ties and the arm drags and the, flinching and, just the standard wrestler stuff that you get into right away, which is still fun. And she's, her frame is pretty good size. She's really athletic and stays in good shape. And she's a handful. I mean, for sure.
Do you think she's going to venture back to jiu-jitsu?
I hope so.
My daughter, same thing. Jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and boy, she went back into jiu-jitsu and she's real into jiu-jitsu right now.
Yeah, I hope she does. I think she will. I mean, she has the personality that would lend itself to probably do that. So she's out of state right now. I think if she comes back in the next year, which I think she very well may, then I'd say you can probably count on it, but I hope she does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to kind of close out the book here a little bit, you say our country's facing a lot of challenges right now, and we need individuals like you to have the courage to think independently, to live with sincerity and integrity, and roll up their sleeves and contribute to the world around us. We each have a part to play and a path to take that is and should be different from one another. There are times when you may feel like you're swimming upstream. You may feel insignificant or inconsequential in the grand scheme of life, but don't give up, because your life, that individual thread that you've been given to weave alongside countless others, is what will create the tapestry of the next chapter in history. What will be on that tapestry and what we will be remembered for is up to us.
Marcus Aurelius.
There you go. There you go. Good stuff, dude.
Yeah,
and you wrote that book a couple of years ago. So what else you got going on?
So the big thing now is just kind of continuing to do all the same stuff that I've been doing. The primary focus is the dog food company. Just because that's such a heavy lift, as you well know, just with product development and bringing new SKUs and even just continuing doing with consumables, it never ends. Which is good. Yep. And I think product based business is. I think you have to have something where people are going through it and reordering regularly. But the expansion of that, I mean, it's kind of ironic. I mean, over the last 15 years when I first started doing dogs for a living, it was like because I love dogs and I want to train dogs. And while I still do that, coming full circle, it's like the bulk of my day now is talking about shipping issues and truck delays and fucking packaging costs. And, and it's like shit that has nothing to do with dogs. It's all the same stuff you probably are faced with all the time.
It works,
But I love it. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I really enjoy doing it. And it's fun. I mean, the reason why I started the dog food company is in that same vein, is that I just wanted to have a superior product and help dogs and help people get the most out of their dogs, both from a training standpoint and from a nutrition standpoint. So I'm still doing the online training. I still sell personal protection dogs. I'll still teach it,
Do people order the dogs in advance, or how's that work?
Yeah, I only do that one at a time. So, there are some companies out there that'll have, 3, 4, 5 dogs for sale on their website. I don't do it that way. If somebody says, hey, I'm interested in a dog, we have a conversation. And then, kind of get the understanding of the family dynamic, the daily routine, and determine, hey, is this a good fit or not? Because there are times where it's not, where I'll say, hey, I really don't, your lifestyle from my perspective, for one of my dogs, it's just too dynamic. Yeah, it's too dynamic. Dogs thrive on routine, and their currency is engagement. And if you can't do both of those things at a certain level, you should get a fucking goldfish. So, or an attack cheetah or whatever, hire a fucking bodyguard. But so at that point, then I'll go find the right dog for that fit, and then bring him into my house and spend however long it takes to get him ready to be delivered. Then I'll spend a couple days delivering the dog, and then that's it. It's a strange business because unlike really anything, it's such an intimate transaction, even if you're, say remodeling somebody's bathroom, like you're in their house and whatever, but not with them. Here, you're adding a family member. This customer is trusting you to put a potentially dangerous animal in their house, with their, so you're spending time with their kids, like you're seeing, and some of these people are household names, they're C-suite executives of, household name corporations or things of that nature. And so, you meet some really, really interesting people and get a lot of good advice business-wise, which was an unintended positive consequence that I didn't anticipate. But that transaction is such where, you're seeing these people that, as they're putting their kids to bed first thing in the morning, like you're staying in their house while they're doing their normal stuff. You see how they interact with their spouses. It's kind of weird. I wouldn't say.
How many days do you spend?
Usually 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, but then, that's once I'm comfortable and they're comfortable with me leaving at that, there comes a certain point where it's counterproductive for me to still be there, because the dog's always going to default to me. Once, everything's kind of good enough for me to leave, then it's still, you're touching base and checking in pretty often. They'll still have a lot of questions. And over that first few weeks, we're still talking quite a bit, and then as a couple months gets down the road, then they're kind of firing on all cylinders, and they don't need a whole lot of advice at that point. But
so dog food, dog training, selling dogs, the podcast,
and then of course the Warrior Dog Foundation, which
you have. How many kennels do you have set up for that?
30, and we're always full. I mean, we've got over 10 dogs on a waiting list right now. I mean, it's one thing where we're trying to expand, and it's tough to determine whether or not it makes sense to expand where we're at, which I don't think it really does, or have regional places. Like I'd like to have a Warrior Dog West Coast, Warrior Dog East Coast, maybe a Warrior Dog North, have different satellite operations where number one is that if the dog, from whatever unit or police department is closer to there, then it's going to go to wherever the closest location is. But two, these dogs don't play well with others. I mean, they're all kind of the Hannibal Lecters of the dog world, and that they've bit a bunch of people they weren't supposed to, and we're to a point where whatever unit they're coming from, wanted to euthanize them, and then that's where we step in. So these aren't the dogs that you can just adopt out and like from the movie Dog or Lassie or whatever. It's not that dog. This is the dog that's made a bunch of mistakes and has hurt people and put them in the hospital that they weren't supposed to. And so we can't let those dogs out together. You're letting them out one at a time. So 30 dogs is kind of pushing it for one location. And so we really need to expand. It's just, I don't know, one of the biggest challenges I think from a nonprofit standpoint is you're kind of in one of two camps. Either, you're really firing on all cylinders in terms of the administrative staff, the fundraising, the, reaching out, the advertisements, the galas, all that kind of stuff. Or, you're doing 97 cents of every dollar goes to the mission, and you're not going to get emailed back right away, and you're not going to get a Christmas card every year on card stock that costs $9 for the Christmas card. And we've always been very lean and leaned more towards that, trying to maximize the amount of dollars going to the taking care of the dog. So the reason I bring that up is that that expansion is pretty heavy lift financially, and while we don't have dedicated grant writers and fundraisers and gala organizers and things like that, it's tough to accomplish that when we're not spending money on that. So still been able to save well over 300 dogs in the last 15 years and continue to do so and will so. But I would like to see kind of the next phase of both my professional career and the foundation to kind of expand and maybe add a few locations to bring some more dogs in.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Does that get us up to speed?
Yeah, I think that's all I got, I guess. But
people can find all that stuff that you just talked about at MikeRitland.com, right? You got Mike Drop, the Mike Drop podcast. You're on Twitter and Instagram at @MRitland. You also have at teamdog.shop, at teamdog.pet, at Warrior Dog Foundation, and you got your YouTube channel, which is at Mike Ritland.
Yeah.
Does that cover all the bases there?
That's every single base.
I was going to put down all the different websites, but they're all under Mike Ritland. You can find them from there. Echo Charles, any questions?
Oh, yeah, quick question.
Yeah.
Remember the Halloween scenario?
Oh,
where,
yeah.
We couldn't go out for trick-or-treating? Do you remember, if you're at liberty to say, do you remember what they lied about?
I have no recollection of what they lied about.
I agree with you with the lying thing.
Yeah.
I think, growing up, we got spanked very rarely for anything, but the thing we always 100% of the time got spanked for was lying.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird psychological thing that I have against lying. It's but I tried to perpetuate that through the kids or whatever. And bro, I would shut down Christmas, Halloween, New Year if they overtly lied. Oh man, 100%. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's a tough. It's tough because I think there are phases in childhood where it's more common than others, and whether it's friend influences or stuff at school or whatever. It's like, man, it's a tough one to handle sometimes. Because. It's infuriating, and so trying to stay calm and not get emotional is tricky. But B, it's like, man, like the one thing I need you to do is fucking level with me, and it's like if I can't trust what you're telling me, we're going to have big problems moving down the road, But
my son lied to me one time, and it was actually the reason I'm thinking about it is because not just because we're talking about lying, but also because we're talking about dogs, because what he lied about was, my wife and I had to go somewhere, and we're like, hey, walk the dog. Cool. And as I'm walking out, you glance over and you see like the pinch collar in a certain spot. And other than that, he's not even wearing a collar. So if you're going for a walk, you're going to take the pinch collar because he was a young dog at the time. He needed to be on leash. So I notice it, and I kind of just frame a reference real quick. Like, oh, you can see the pattern that it's in.
Yeah.
Walk the dog.
So I come back, we go back, we're gone for half an hour, whatever, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, come back. I look at that leash, it's in the exact same spot, in the exact same pattern. I was like, hey, did you walk the dog? And he's like, yep. I go, hey dude, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you walk that dog? And he goes, yeah. And I go, okay. I said, I know you didn't. You're done. There's levels to being done. I'm going to allow you to have a lower level if you tell me the truth right now. Did you walk that dog? He's like, no. I said, okay, get your workout gear on. And I, He went through a little hammer session. The funny thing is, so Leif and Seth were around, this is when he was a younger guy. So these guys were around all the time, and he's like in the middle of some freaking punishing burpee thruster kettlebell punishment. And I'm like, I said, do you think Seth and Leif ever messed up? Because I was going to, do you think they messed up? Of course they did. Do you think they lied to me? No. I'm like, do you think Leif and Seth ever messed up? And he's like, no, never. I was like, bullshit, they messed up all the time. Do you think they lied to me? No. So there you go. No lying.
No lying.
That's what we're doing. Mike, any final thoughts, bro?
No, I can't thank you enough for having me out and taking a full day to let me interview you and then do the reverse. So thank you very much. I know your time is precious.
Right on, man. Well, it's awesome to have you back here. Thanks for joining us once again. Thanks for what you did for the teams, for our great nation, and thanks for what you continue to do now. Helping dogs, helping people, and helping them both become a little bit smarter and a little bit better, better canines and better humans.
Yeah. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. And with that, Mike Ritland has left the building, obviously putting forth some pretty good steps to improve America, to improve your community, to improve your family, to improve yourself.
Yep.
And a bunch of steps. One of the ones I noticed was
get outside.
Get outside. Clean fuel. Get after it. Train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So we're looking for good fuel.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend Jocko Fuel.
Okay.
Hey, he was like, eat good foods. 100%.
Yep.
We're eating steak. We're eating salads, right? We're eating chicken.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this. You're even eating sushi, right?
Yeah.
We're doing it.
But
can't always get everything that we need through these protocols. Sure. Check out JockoFuel.com. Get the other things that you need. Supplement your fuel system. Yeah. You can get extra protein, milk protein, ready to drink, powder form. You can get energy. You can get super krill. You can get time war. You get just the supplements that you need. So check out JockoFuel.com and get what you need. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at Wawa, Vitamin Shop, GNC, military commissaries, AFES, Hannaford, Dash Stores in Maryland, Wakefern, ShopRite, HEB down in Texas, Meijer in the Midwest, Wegmans, Harris Teeter, Lifetime Fitness, Shields, and whatever gym you're at, they can have it there too. If they don't have it there, email jfsales@jockofuel.com and get it there. That's what we're doing.
Is there a limitation to how big your gym has to be or anything like that? Just
no.
However,
you could have 4 people that train at your gym, and those 4 people could be fueled properly.
Yeah. So even the little Pilates place, just for example, whoever.
By the way, we're in chiropractic places.
Okay,
we're in all kinds of little niche places. Anywhere where people are focused on being healthy and fit and high performance, we're in those places. So we're in all kinds of different places. Hardware stores.
Yeah. Let's roll it in.
Yeah, that's what we're doing, man. JockoFuel.com. Check it out.
Right on. Also, you said jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So if you're doing the gi jiu-jitsu, which is, hey, man, recommended. So, if you're doing the gi jiu-jitsu, be sure to get a gi, an origin gi, all made in America. And here's the thing. Yeah, made in America, yes. But in addition, you got the added fact that's the best gi in the world as far as quality goes as well. Mm-hmm. Trust me, I saw the process, and I wear the gi, so I know 100%.
You know what's up. Also jeans, also T-shirts, hoodies, hunt gear, everything that you need. We got it going on. You need it to work out. And by the way, you might as well get it made in America, the United States of America, not by some poor child slave in some other country that's in an abusive environment, that's working against their will. Don't put into that system. Don't put money into that system. Put money into America. OriginUSA.com. Check it out.
It's true. Also, Jocko has a store called Jocko Store. JockoStore.com. So you can get your Discipline Equals Freedom shirts. There's hats on there. There's hoodies on there. Shirts that say good. I want to propagate good a little bit more. Maybe on a different item. Anyway.
Clear dot, man.
Clear dot. We got socks on there. Anyway, some cool stuff on there. If you want to represent while you're on the path. Also, what we have on there is this little subscription scenario called the Shirt Locker. It's a new shirt design every month. little bit more creative designs, funner designs. People represent. That's when you can get your attention. A little bit. I don't mean bad attention. I mean like, you know, the kind where you wear your shirt and be like, oh, where'd you get that shirt? You know. So anyway, it's that kind of designs. It's called the Shirt Locker. It's all on jockostore.com.
Available
big time.
You're going to need steak. I did mention steak. We want to be eating steak. You might as well eat the good steak. Check out coloradocraftbeef.com and primalbeef.com. Awesome steak. One from Colorado, the other from the Shenandoah Valley. Either one is going to be epic. Awesome steaks, awesome people, awesome companies. Check out primalbeef.com, coloradocraftbeef.com. Also, subscribe to this podcast. Also, check out Jocko Underground. Also, we got YouTube channels. We got Psychological Warfare. We got Flipside Canvas. Books by Mike Ritland, Unfuck America. Trident K-9 Dogs.
You're so funny because I was thinking the same thing when you're talking about the big publishers and what the edits they would have made. You're like, maybe the title.
Yeah. But it was a thing for a while, like that it was a big shocking thing, and then the book came out that was called
Unfuck Yourself.
Unfuck Yourself.
Yeah, I think that was right.
But there might have even been another one. But there was one big hit. Unfuck Yourself was one of them. Mm-hmm. And then that broke the mold, and now there's a bunch of books like that have a swear word.
I understand.
One of them being Unfuck America.
Yes, sir.
Trident K-9 Dogs, Navy SEAL Dogs, and Team Dog by Mike Ritland. I've written a bunch of books about various things from leadership to washing machines to kids' books. So check out those books. Check out Mikey and the Dragons. Check out About Face by Colonel David Hackworth. We have a leadership consulting company. It's called Echelon Front. We solve problems through leadership. So if you have problems inside your organization, they are leadership problems. And if you want to resolve those problems, go to echelonfront.com and check out what we have going on. There's also events that you can come to. One event is called the Dallas. The next one is in San Diego, February 23rd through the 25th. If you want to go to one of our events, please register early because they all sell out. On top of that, we have an online training academy where you can learn the leadership principles that we teach online. Training courses. There's quizzes. There's live sessions. Go to extremeownership.com if you want to learn these principles in your business, in your life, in your family. Extremeownership.com. Check that out. And if you want to help out service members, active and retired, you want to help their families, you want to help Gold Star families, check out Mark Lee's mom, Mama Lee. She's got an amazing charity organization. If you want to donate or you want to get involved, go to americasmightywarriors.org. Also check out heroesandhorses.org, Jimmy May's organization, which is called Beyond the Brotherhood, and of course Mike Ritland's Warrior Dog Foundation. Check all those out. Great organizations. If you want to connect with us, for Mike Ritland, he's on the interwebs, MikeRitland.com, and you can kind of find everything that he talked about and everything that he does at MikeRitland.com. He also has the Mike Drop podcast. He's got Twitter and Instagram where he is at MRitland. And he's also got a YouTube channel, which is at Mike Ritland. For us, you can check out Jocko.com, and I am at Jocko Willink, and Echo is at Echo Charles. And just be careful, because as we talked about today, there's an algorithm that's going to try and lock you into a little echo chamber that's going to make your life miserable. So be careful of that. Thanks again to Mike Ritland for joining us. Thanks for your service to America, your service as a frogman in the teams. And thanks for what you're doing still today to represent. And thanks to all our military personnel out there around the world, including our K-9 dogs that are out there getting after it. Thank you for protecting our way of life here in America. As imperfect as it is still worth protecting. And in that same vein, thanks to our police, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers, correctional officers, Border Patrol, Secret Service, and all other first responders. Thank you for protecting us here at home. And everyone else out there, there's a lot of complex issues and topics that you got to navigate in the world. And it can be a little crazy sometimes.
Yes, sir.
But I would recommend that at a minimum, like Mike Ritland says, you should get yourself squared away. Think for yourself. Take responsibility. Get outside. Get the proper fuel. And get off your ass. And that's what we got. Until next time, this is Echo and Jocko out.